And it was just a terrible thing that I think you just really can't tell the terrible effects that it had on so many people. He was one of those that tried to test the government and the American Constitution by refusing to go to camp and staying on the West Coast. Of course, he was put into jail, and I don't know how long he stayed there. And many years later, he made a test case of his experience being put into prison for staying on the West Coast and not going to camp. But I think the Supreme Court upheld the decision and said it was within the Constitution to do what they did to us. But it was a terrible injustice, and we were treated as though we were the enemy, which we were not, because we were American-born citizens. We face the ultimate prejudice by being thrown into camps, having our lives disrupted, and losing everything we had, everything material. And it was a terrible blow to us, as we never felt. We never felt that we were Japanese. We always felt American. So it was a blow. It was a terrible blow. When we got off the bus, then somebody handed us a gunny sack. And he said, go over to that pile and fill that gunny sack with straw. So there was a big pile of straw there. So I packed my gunny sack with straw. And it turned out to be that was my bed for the rest of my stay in Manzanar. And I slept on this straw mattress, and boy, I'll tell you, the straw used to poke through the holes and used to kind of scratch you. Of course, we had no sheets, and they gave us army blankets, and the cot had no springs, but when you're young, you can stand almost anything. So it was a very hostile environment with lots of wind and dust, and there was nothing growing around there, so the dust was terrible. And when the wind would blow, you could hardly see each other because of the dust and the dirt. And after the wind would stop blowing, then your bed would be covered with dust, and you had to shake up your blankets to get the dust off. So anyway, it was a miserable life, but it got so nothing, there was no use complaining. There was nothing you could do about it. As far as compensation for what we lost, nothing will ever compensate us for what we lost in property and in lives, because my brother died at the age of 30, my sister was 26, and my father was in his early 60s, and he shouldn't have died either, but it was all the adverse effects of the disruption in our lives and the exposure to the wind and the dust that caused asthma for my sister. So $20,000 does not compensate us for the terrible losses. When the compensation was announced, one of my colleagues, a Caucasian doctor of Greek and Russian descent, said to me, "Mary, why should we jeopardize our future, our children, our grandchildren, by paying you guys $20,000 for something that happened 40-some years ago?" So I told him, "Look, why don't you go to prison for 3 years without committing a crime? If you'll do that, I'll pay you $20,000. He didn't have an answer for that. We should not have been treated the way that we were treated, but I think it was part of the American notion of white supremacy, and I think we were treated like an inferior race, and in the same way that the Indians are treated badly and the slaves were treated even worse. I think it was part of America's racism that we ended up in those camps. I would protest. If it were today, I wouldn't go to camp. I would do like Korematsu and I'd stay here.